go live.
Good evening, Keeps Up the Cash. Gary B, the Casual Comic Guy, and joined on a Friday, we have Digger Jim in the co-pilot seat. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing good.
Long time no see, buddy.
I know. Just yesterday.
Now, the reason you didn't see the in the hot seat because this is just a special one-on-one. We are here tonight to promote a book written by our guest of the hour, which is not me, which is we're off to a banging start.
Big announcement, Gary.
Thank you,
about your book tonight.
for changing your buttons on me. I'm still not used to the new format. Jason Douglas, the twice nominated Ringo Starr. The Ringo nominated writer and twice sold out author of Parallel.
There you go.
It's a tongue twister.
Yeah.
Jason's got so many
Dude,
nice hats over there that
I lost both Ringo categories, as you guys know. I might have had a shot at the Ringo Starr. I might have won
exactly.
that. Sure.
I was like, I can't believe I said Ringo Starr. That's funny. Oh goodness! But Jason, great to see you, man. We had a little delay in getting you on. Nevertheless, you are here now.
That's right.
And that's what matters. So we're going to start out with just something simple, right? Your new Kickstarter came out for Jane American.
Mm-hmm.
It's already back. Everything now is gravy, going towards your next book.
Right.
Before we even get into what Jane America is, how does it feel to already be fully backed and to already have revenue going towards your next book?
I don't know. It's a little weird right now. Like it's one of these things where it kind of, this is not my full-time job, as anybody who has seen me on the show knows. I'm a school teacher during the day. So in the span of wrapping up the day at school, getting my kid home, hanging blinds that my wife took down for a decorating thing and getting those back up, getting on live, it was all kind of happening at once. So I haven't even digested it yet. But the idea that it, look, do superstar Kickstarter sometimes get back faster than this? Of course they do. But who am I compared to them? And it took 4 days. It took less than 4 days. And I am absolutely blown away.
Not to brag, but I think I was your third sale.
I think you were too. I think that number 3 looks really good. The name on my little backer report there, buddy.
Number 3.
Yeah.
Better than being a deuce.
It's like we've been talking about that. Remember emergency colonoscopy a couple days ago? Right. I'm having issues right now. It's amazing. It's overwhelming. It's humbling. And now, in my opinion, the real work begins, the real grind, because like you kind of mentioned there, yes, I've got some really cool stretch goals that I want people to check out on the campaign. But something about this book and this campaign from a financial standpoint, I got the goal down to the price that I did. A comparable book of this size with this kind of talent behind it on the creative team was kind of estimated at being 10 to 12 grand to fund it. And I made sure that, number one, I got it lower because not a penny of that goal money goes to me. And then a bunch of kind of cool things that I did to make sure that price got down even further, things that we can talk about later. But what you mentioned and what's really important to me is not you said gravy, and I don't want people to misinterpret that as now I start to get my cut. Because not a single dollar that we go over the goal goes to me either.
Right, I meant gravy towards the next book.
Yeah, it's literally to defray the cost of the 120-page Jane American graphic novel that I want to follow this. So as terrified as I was of the Kickstarter never having done one before, as terrified as I am of that all or nothing thing, and even hitting our goal, which we magically hit today, the idea of how much to fund a graphic novel is a number that made my skin itch a little bit. And the fact that, as I keep on hustling, we keep on doing shows and we keep on promoting this for the next, couple of weeks, every dollar that I can bring down that price, 6 months from now or a year from now or whenever we launch that campaign, I couldn't be happier. It doesn't matter that no money's coming to me. It matters that I can affordably get a story that means the world to me into people's hands that I think are really going to enjoy it.
Right, at a reduced price to them.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay. So this is going to be a little embarrassing. I think I might have told you, Jason, but I'm having an issue with the Kickstarter. They wanted all this info, like something happened and they want a new email. They want all this information. And I've just been kind of lazy. And I was like, when you announced you were going to do it, I was like, all right, I'm going to get this. I want to get this. I want to make sure that I'm, getting the books that you're offering and so forth. So I told my wife, I'm like, honey, you have Kickstarter, you do it. And so I sent her the link and everything. And so she starts looking at it, and I sent her the video you made, talking about what was going on with your life and everything.
Yeah.
And so she goes into the Kickstarter and she goes, okay, so you want to do this $300 one? We can do this $300 one. And I was like, what $300 one? It's a comic book. Are you on the right thing? And she's like, yeah, you can he'll put your name in it or he'll put your likeness. I said, I don't think so. Not in this comic. Are you in the right one? And she goes, and she sends me, and I don't know what that part is. I said, I just want to see what you're looking at. Send me a screenshot. And I'm like, I don't know what this is. I just want the comic book.
Yeah.
What is that?
So like, you've got these different tiers of support, right? Like Kickstarter is about getting your project funded. And obviously because the margins are pretty thin, and printing costs a certain amount and fulfillment costs a certain amount. And then paying all your talent, it's very rare to have something where you can offer a book for, what would normally be cover price, right?
Sure.
Because you're not you'll never get to your goal. You'd have to have 1,000 backers. You'd have to have 10,000 backers to be able to get that to the point, right?
Right.
So one of the most easy things, the most general things that you do on a Kickstarter is you get a ridiculously fancy, if you can afford it, cover by a much more famous person than you, right? And that's a Kickstarter exclusive. So you're paying for that variant. Well,
sure.
Paying's the wrong word. You're backing a project that you support.
Right.
And you get like Kickstarter's very, as an English teacher, I'm very aware of their semantics, their verbiage, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's called you are backing the project, the humans that are making it. And then if you back it at a certain level, you get rewards, right?
Okay.
So you can't think about it like going to your LCS and picking up this week's comic. Because what you're doing is you are supporting people so that this thing can exist in the world. And as a reward for you doing that for us, I've got these really special, cool things that you're not going to be able to get anywhere else. And at certain levels, right, you've got your PDF, which is always the cheapest one on there.
Sure.
But then you've got your different covers. And in my case, I got these wicked, cool, amazing covers by amazingly talented, famous comic book people.
Yes.
Do these covers. And then, and I fancy up the covers because, well, you guys saw me on the 1011, a ridiculous collector nerd too.
Right.
Kind of cool collectible covers. But then you want to make as many tiers as possible to create interesting and unique opportunities for people to back your project and get something that not only, it's one thing that you can't get this cover or that cover anywhere else.
Right.
It's another thing to offer people an opportunity to say, bundle a bunch of stuff together, but get a little bit of a discount. That appeals to somebody, right? It's another thing to say, oh, you know what? I've got this little add-on. It doesn't matter which cover you pick, but if you grab the add-on section, hey, you know what you'll never get at your LCS when you're picking up this month's comic is an authentically recreation of Western Union Telegram letter of condolence when your soldiers have come back from the war that looks and feels exactly like one would have felt like in the 1940s,
I got you.
So there's things like that. And then to make, you want to talk about a unique experience, that tier that your wife ran into, you get 4 different versions of the book. You get 3 different covers in the PDF. Okay. So
Mhm.
you're getting a lot of bang for your buck right there. But
Right.
then what you're also getting as a reward if you back at that level, which really kind of helps push us forward towards our goals of printing and fulfilling and things like that, is your name and likeness will be in the Jane American 120-page OGN that follows this. Now, I warn you when you read that section of the Kickstarter, and this might be appealing to some people, this might be actually something they like, but I warn you up front, you've got to be aware that when you're in that book, when you turn the page and you see a character drawn that looks like you and you see your name on the page, you're not going to be a very nice person. You are an antagonist at best, an outright villain at worst.
Nice.
Yeah, right.
So no change for you,
I
Jim.
put it there as a warning with a wink because I know, look, I'm getting to know our community pretty well. And most people are like, yeah, make me the bad guy. I'm like, my pleasure.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So it's not, you're not paying any dollars to get a comic book with a Kickstarter. Okay. At least I don't believe that's the way it works.
Right. You're back in.
You're certainly not paying $300 for a book, though I am hooking you up with 3 physical and 1 digital, very cool covers of a book that you can't get anywhere else.
Right.
But I'm also hooking you up with this as a thank you for backing us at that level, which really helps us move things along, right? I mean, if you could imagine if the only thing I offered was the PDF at $5 a pop, I would need, 45 years? 4 years?
No, I understand. I wasn't sure what, like, it just got confusing there for a minute because I didn't understand you had the second book coming out like that.
Yeah. And that's the kind of thing, like anytime you're giving money to anybody, read the fine print, right? And this isn't fine print, this is right there up front. But like I did a pretty good job, in my opinion. Like listen, if there's anything that I do well, maybe annoying to some, is I will over explain. I will talk you to death until you get it. I've been on the show enough, you know that. Like, you should read my weekly newsletters that I send home to the parents and kids. Like, there is all the information, all of it is there.
Right, my notes are just ask them one question.
Seriously, right? Like, when are you guys? Come on, let's get some questions in here. Why aren't you asking me questions? Is
I
it
have a
because
question,
I've been talking
actually.
for the last 10 minutes straight? Yes.
So let's get to a question. I'm curious about the difference in your journey between your first one being published by SourcePoint and then you having to learn how to do a Kickstarter, and what made you go the Kickstarter route as opposed to trying to get it published through another publisher again? What was it the personal nature of what this book is about, or was it just how difficult it was to get vetted the first time?
All of the above. I mean, this is how comics are made in the 21st century. Like 90% of indie comics are self-published through a platform like this. And then that doesn't mean that blah, blah, blah months from now, I can't take this thing that exists. Cause like I was telling Jim, like, there at no point besides, maybe like for a giveaway here or there with the extra copies I print for myself of these covers, like this isn't existing. The covers that you can get on this Kickstarter, you're never going to see them in previews, right? You're not going to see them wherever. This is for this only, to make sure the project exists in the world. And the way most indie comics are done right now is you do this first, and then you have a finished product that, in this kind of turbulent world where publishing comics are on as about a thin ice as you can get. Yeah. It's much safer for especially an indie publisher to say, oh, we don't have to put any money up front. We don't have to take a risk on this product that doesn't exist yet. You mean I can read your see that it is this now do of it? Like, that's what publishers want these days. And that's kind of why this is how 21st century comics are made. And like, you guys know, like the whole parallel thing, it's as atypical as can happen. Like, it's just not, like, there's lessons to be learned from that story and that journey. There's advice that I can give people from it, but like the story itself, like recreating it, I couldn't do it if I tried. I don't know that.
Yeah, lightning in a bottle effect there,
Right? Like,
right?
I don't know
Right.
if that ever happens again for anybody, much less me. So almost automatically, I was like, and people above me were like, no, you got to do this. This was its own thing, and you've got to do it the way that everybody does it next, right?
Right.
You got one.
Good job, buddy, but you're not special enough to be.
Right.
I mean, look on Kickstarter, dude. Like names that you and I grew up with, names that that we think should be living in gold-plated mansions now because of how much we revere them as creators.
Right.
Guess where they get their next book, their next creator-owned book out into the world is Kickstarter.
Right, and I've got a bunch like the Hildebrandt cover you get off Kickstarter. This guy you get even some of the famous guys right now like Lucio Perillo has Kickstarter only covers that I've bought.
Well, what's funny, and I'm kind of discovering this, I've talked about this a little bit lately, and this is kind of news to me, is, Kickstarter is obviously like the platform so that it exists on any level first, and to get it funded and to make sure it exists in the world in some kind of viable format. But as the distribution system of comics and other things too kind of falls apart a little bit, Kickstarter is becoming a major distributor of our medium as well. Like it's huge in like the tabletop gaming industry. Like there are these massive games that are being funded on Kickstarter, and they're not even going to stores. They're just being distributed to thousands upon thousands of fans just straight through this platform. So
Right.
I'm just hoping they find another price format that's not so pricey in the future to get stuff. And I don't know if that's a viable thing for Kickstarter in Indiegogo and platforms like that or not.
Yeah, I mean, but like part of it is like I was saying to Jim earlier, the margins are so thin and the expense because you don't have a third party involved, at least not. I mean, Kickstarter takes its cut, but you don't have a third party involved that's like absorbing certain costs and it gets paid off elsewhere. You're responsible for fulfillment. You're responsible for printing. You're responsible for making sure every single one of your creative team gets paid. And so the reason why it's not just this cover that you will see for the next blah, blah, blah years, the reason why you get as fancy with it and make the unique things as you can so that you can get to that goal.
Now, let me ask you, because I got my copy.
Yeah, there it is.
I got my copy by reserving it through previews. How much of a kick was it for you as an author to see your book listed in previews and have it available for people to actually pre-order and have it waiting for them when they arrive at the shop?
So I remember when the first print hit previews. That was like one of the big, huge highlights, right? And it wasn't diminished at all because like at that point, Source Point had just started their deal with Diamond, and they were putting out a couple books a month, and it was like at the back under S, and it was the tiny picture.
Yeah.
Right? And that was I was over the moon. Okay. Now, did some of that pleasure get taken away when, you guys know the story, the book dropped right into the beginning of lockdown and literally flopped hard, and then the 18
and then you hit the YouTube circuit.
Being success came next? Sure. But when we solicited special edition, it got a full page to itself.
Right.
And when I flipped that, because I did Josh or Travis, nobody at Source Point told me that was happening. And I flipped that page. I was waiting for the little blurb, and it was a full page, and I may have fallen down and convulsed on the floor for a little while. And like I've told you before, like all these things, anytime it's something new, it's this I got this elated feeling because I've been a fan of comic books decades and decades longer than I've been a creator of them.
Right.
And so like being in a magazine that I've looked at monthly forever it's indescribable, right? Going to Baltimore and meeting Jim in person, like Jim coming to me and saying like, I'm coming over here to talk to you after being that person who did that with all of my heroes and whatever for years and years and years. It is indescribable. I'm not tired of it. I'm tired of the notes. Tomorrow's going to be my first free comic book day signing. In
Nice.
Michigan, the actual town that Jane American historically takes place in. Like I'm terrified because I've never done that before. I'm over the moon because I know this first experience I'm going to cherish forever.
See, the hardest part for you about that, you know what that's going to be, right? Is
What?
not talking for 20 minutes to each person that comes up for a signature.
I know. Because it's not, and it's because I know this. I haven't done it, but I know this, that it's a different dynamic than like the cons that I've been doing.
Yeah, like you want to be personal, but you want to keep the line moving too.
Right, because there's going to be people in there. Like I don't think, I mean, just between you and I, we're like talking shop now. We're talking like strategy. Just between you and I, as we're on a live stream.
Right.
Did I really just say that out loud? I did.
Just
you're not recording, right? You're not going to be
wink, wink.
Like there's going to be so many. Thank you, Katie. There's going to be so many people there I think I said this when I was on with Katie earlier tonight. Like I'm going to be like 10th on the bill. They're going to be looking over at me going like, I don't even know what this is. And I'm going to have to be careful. You're right about not doing my normal thing and giving them the 10 minutes spiel when potential people that could really help us get, down the road on this goal or whatever are kind of like going, I can't wait for this guy to stop yapping at this person. So
right.
I'm aware of it. I have no idea how I'm going to do it. But as you know, I get up in front of 180 teenagers every day, and I haven't quite failed yet. So I'm decent on my feet. I'm going to figure it out.
Oh, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you're going to have a blast too. Like it'll be fun to hear about how it went for you.
Yeah.
So
you gotta shoot
go ahead, Jim.
No. You gotta video just a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Get somebody to video just a little.
K-pop says she's gonna do some live streaming while I'm there.
Nice.
I could see. I'm telling you, gentlemen, you got me. Michigan is about to pass a law to make us a much more hands-free phone state. It's already got some things in place, but they're about to pass this law. This is going to be very good for me. You don't need me doing. Who knows what stupid thing I would pull. Tables collapsing. I'm on the floor. The video's upside down. If that stuff all didn't happen, I would be shocked.
It's nice to see that you and Katie connected too.
Yeah, she's awesome. Thank you. That's all for you. That's all about you. We talked about it at the end of her show. Like
it's not about me. It's nice that you guys connected.
Stop.
He does that. He puts people together like that. Yeah. That's good.
Mm-hmm. You are a people person. You guys are good at your job, and you are very, very good for this community. That's for sure.
So with Jane American,
yeah.
This one is way more personal than Parallel. Parallel had personal things for you, but this one's directly connected to your family history and America's history. You want to speak about that for a moment?
Yeah, I mean
a Jason moment, so it can go on for a while. Jason's like, I'm not coming on this show again. Gary's busting balls.
Stop it. Yeah,
done with this clown.
Jane's a very personal book. Okay, so the pitch is pretty simple. We're talking about a 32-page one-shot. It's a full story, but it's also the introduction to this larger world of Jane. Okay, it's really exploring. We've talked about Parallel to death on this show, and structurally, we got the same thing going on. I love the idea, the comic book nerd in me loves the idea of wrapping whatever story, whatever the heart of the story is, in something that all comic book fans can recognize and get into, right? Parallels, the dark sci-fi twisted tale, parallel version of you reaching out. But what it's really wrapping is those universal themes of existential dread, time passing, dreams deferred, right? We've done that. Jane's the same thing in the fact that it's wrapped in the comic book trope, much beloved. I got to be careful how I say this, so I don't say the word that gives it away too much, but like human beings that can do some things that other human beings can't. Okay. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about without me saying it. And that is the wrapping paper around the much deeper and more personal and universal themes of identity, gender, self-worth, self-fulfillment, being yourself. And it's all set in that small town World War II time and post-World War II time, small town American structures of those themes. It's got hints of beloved stories like Superman for All Seasons, those coming of age stories. Archie 1941 comes to mind. If you know your comic books and you know how metaphors and direct representation can work in comics, even though you're not going to see direct one-to-one correlation, you're going to feel a lot of X-Men in this too, because metaphor does what the mutant metaphor does. Okay. Here's what I promise.
A very important book connected kind of to your grandparents, right?
Yeah. You told me I could stretch here. I'm getting there, Gary.
I'll be good. I promise.
You and I have been on this show back and forth for a long time now. Have I ever once, even if my loop takes a half an hour, have I ever once failed you and not come around to that original question? I don't think I have.
No, you do not leave out any details. I will give you that.
Oh my God, you sound like everybody else in my life who now knows me well enough to like, get to the point, dude. You talk too much.
No, I just didn't want to forget to bring up your grandparents. It's something I had written down.
It's coming. All right, so check this out. Here's my promise to you. Like this 32-page story, the way my hope and the impact for you is it's gonna break your heart. It's gonna make you cheer, and it's gonna leave you with this cliffhanger that's gonna absolutely leave you wanting more. Okay. And that's where, hey, let's fund this 120 pager, at least part of it, while we're at it doing this 32 pager. So the pitch for the book, Jane's life, it's coming of age story. Jane in the present day, 1946, just post-war, 15 years old, more than enough responsibility for a young girl coming of age in wartime, small town America, right? But family tragedy, dad's not coming home, has changed her, has triggered something in her that allows her to be something and do something that normal people can in unbelievable ways that are way better in this society left hidden, okay? And yet the economic hardships of the end of the war, the fact that Rosie the Riveters, what her mom was doing to sustain them while dad was overseas, that is over now. Economic hardships are kind of forcing her to make this decision about staying hidden, staying safe, the best spot for her, or really embracing who she really is for the sake of everyone she loves. There's going to be some tough decisions she's got to make. Now, what makes this book? I'm coming back, Gary. Watch me do it, buddy. What makes this so personal to me is that this book is inspired by and named after my late grandmother, who fought against, not entirely successfully, a lot of the same things that Jane is going through, being put in that box of societal expectations in post-World War II America, right? There's family names throughout the book. Now, this book is inspired and named after my grandmother, but it's very much dedicated to my now late grandfather. He passed away a couple weeks ago. The dude made it to 99 years old, a month and a couple of weeks.
Wow.
World War II veteran, right? 40 years for Michigan Bell, making sure that communication went all over southeastern Michigan. Do you guys know what Kiwanis is? It's one of the service organizations. If you know,
the Kiwanis Club. Yeah.
Kiwanis. My grandfather rose through the ranks of Michigan, and then eventually the international ranks of Kiwanis leadership, and was president of Kiwanis International in like 1989. This dude lived a life, okay? Yeah. And it's very much dedicated to him because in the last year of his life, well, actually the last couple, as this was coming together, I mean, he was actually part of the research process. Maybe we can talk about that later. But in the last year of his life, in the last few months of his life, as he was declining, this project became just as important to him as it became to me. And I was telling K-pop about this earlier. Thing last couple was for Jane American. I printed him out a physical copy, and it was by his bedside every day, and he loved it. And every time that Annie Wright, my ridiculously talented and young enough to make my head spin, 21 years old. This is her first book, and she's doing it like a pro. Every time a new Annie page came in, I sent it to him or I took it over to him, and he'd cry because his dream was to see his high school sweetheart's name and likeness in print in a comic book. My grandmother. And actually, the last thing he got to see was the two covers, the Sina Grace cover and the Malia cover. And he looked at me. He's like, "This is beautiful. Thank you." And so, I got to be really careful. I'm going to break down.
And what a great honor for those artists if they captured her so well that it moved him to tears, right?
Yeah. And so, I'm doing this for him. This is for my grandparents. And then I don't want to say more importantly, but certainly a wider impact is this book is also very much dedicated to every single student who has walked through my class in the last 23 years, who even in the 21st century are still struggling with those exact same societal restrictions, cases of identity. Yeah. And that self-fulfillment that's so hard for teenagers in any age. And it has been breaking my heart for the 21st century that I've been a teacher. I get it. I understand I'm a history nerd. I get it that in 1946, the roles of people of color in society and of women in society, they were different and they were much more restrictive, and we've come a long way since then. And here we are in the 21st century, and I got kids struggling with the exact same thing still. And it broke my heart, and this is for them too. So yeah, this is a much more personal.
Right, there's always a level of human experience that runs through every generation.
Literally the most important people in my life, family, and my kids, my extended kids, right? The thousands of kids who have come through my classroom, this is for them. I want this story to exist for them. That's why not a penny of the Kickstarter comes to me, so I can get it at a price where I know the story gets out there to them. That's why not a penny of the stretch goal money above the goal that we hit today comes to me, because all I want is for this book to exist in the world, because it's so important to people that I love and people that I care about and people that I've literally dedicated my life to. I don't need to make money on this book because I'm a public school teacher and I make $1 a day or whatever we make these days. We're still fairly underpaid. Okay. That's my soapbox. I'm getting off of it.
No, that's true.
So, but that, I want this story to exist for these people I care about deeply, because it's about them, it's for them. And those universal, just like in Parallel, man, those universal themes are there. That's what the story is really about. Do you get to have a fun, action-packed and emotional story as well that you can enjoy as any kind of comic book fan? You better believe it. I believe in that kind of storytelling and bang for your buck and reaching as many people as possible. But at its core, it's about stuff we all struggle with. And hopefully that will touch as many people as the same kind of thing happened with Parallel, right?
Right. Same thing that happens in any well-written comic story throughout history, right? You find a nugget in there that connects you personally to the characters, and it carries it forward.
Yeah, I've never been the king of a dream realm. Yet Sandman speaks to me, right?
Right.
You can find a good writer, you can find yourself in anything. I was not alive, blah, 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 centuries ago. And yet I'm going to be able to relate to it because Shakespeare knew humans, and it doesn't matter that it was 500, 600 years ago. It's human themes and universal truths, and they don't necessarily change. It's just that sometimes there's a phone in your hand and sometimes it's a sword.
Right. Yeah. People are still people.
Right.
Nice. So when it comes to you getting the artists and stuff, this one you had to kind of do your own legwork for, right?
Yeah. I mean, I got really lucky because I'm working with the greatest editor on the face of the planet, Dr. Christy Blanche, who is a ridiculously talented writer on her own. She co-writes Good Boy with Garrett Gunn and a bunch of other books. She's also a world-class retailer and owns All Yeah Comics in Muncie, Indiana. And she's also probably one of the top 2-3 most in-demand panel moderators at cons across the country. She gets flown everywhere because Elijah Wood wants her there at his, panel. And she's my editor on this. And she found Annie, right? Annie was actually Annie goes to Ball State right now doing graphic design. And Annie was a customer at Christie's store. and Annie has a ridiculous amount of talent that Christy noticed and passed on to me. And we talked this out. Like, this has been in the process for a while. I think maybe I mentioned that, like, this Kickstarter, the original plan was this sucker was supposed to go in September. And then I got the answer, and it like changed the whole timeline of when Parallel Special Edition and this was. But like back in those heated debates of this summer, where we're going, do we go this direction? Do we go that direction? What do we need? What are we looking for? And like Annie was just kind of like sitting there in front of us, and it was like, oh my God, there's some potential here. There's some really good, I mean, she was wrong. She's 21. She just turned 21, for God's sake, boys. And this is her first book, but like Christy saw it, I saw it, and there's all this potential there. And then, so do you remember, we probably talked about this more than once, like one of the most magical things that happened in the Parallel process was I got to live that writer cliche of you've got something in your mind, you think it's perfect, and then the artist produces something that goes beyond that, and you're like,
right.
And that's what happened on with Mr. Ferris there on the first book. And then with Annie, what happened was I was a little more guarded, and she knows this. I'm not spilling any tea here. Like, I was a little more guarded. Like, okay, this is your first time, so my script's going to be a little tighter. I'm gonna give you some guided notes to make sure, because like you might have all this raw talent, but like if you haven't done sequential yet, I feel like I need to guide you so it doesn't go off the rails early, right? And so I'm kind of doing this. I'm doing this overprotective author, overprotective teacher, overprotective dad thing, right? Like, you know what I mean? And then she sends me some art. And for the second time in my very short comic career, I get the...
You're like, no, you're good.
Because this young person does emotive expressions.
Wow.
On my characters' faces, on characters named and based loosely on family members of real human beings. And there's stuff that the first page she sent me, I cried my eyes out.
Nice.
Because of what it meant to me, because of her talent, and because the emotion that actually elicited those tears was on the page. There's a couple images, even in those 5 pages that you can see on the Kickstarter, where you look at that and like it feels real. Like if you don't, there's the first page she sent me has got this image. It's like if you go, I think it's like the third, it might be the second or the third page. No, it's the third page, yeah. So if you go down to that third page, this is the first page that Annie did. And if you go down there, and that embrace right there between Jane, that's Jane at 12 in 1943, and that's May, her mom, in her Rosie outfit. And that image, like if you don't see the compassion and the love and the gratitude for the present that May gave Jane in that page, like if you can't, it's there, and it knocked me out. And that's why when you, like, if you ever come and see me like at a signing or a show, I finally, my little, I'm stepping towards professionalism. I've got my first retractable banner, right? And that's why the bottom half of it is this wicked cool image, and the top half of it is that image, because it just speaks to me.
Nice. Gary,
you're muted.
You can see it. You can see it in the eyes, right?
Yeah.
And and it looks. I mean, you can feel what the characters are feeling. You can see the emotion. And it looks like something simple, but it's actually something so difficult, hard, and nuanced to catch. Yeah. And to make it look so natural is a gift.
So do you remember when we would talk about like how I couldn't understand how Adam on Parallel could somehow draw ambiguity, and yet he could do it?
Right.
The same thing here. Like, I don't know how in 2 dimensions and in short little lines, the level of emotion is like, I don't know how, I don't get it. I feel it as like a comic book reader and fan. Like, I appreciate it. I feel it, and I'm blown away at it as the writer, but I don't know how talented people do that. Artists. I don't get it. And it blows me away and humbles me quite a bit, honestly.
And it really draws you into the characters. That's the power of it. It's not just the written word. It's when you see it drawn that well, the mix of those two together really connect you to what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, as this was nearing completion and you were getting a view of how it was all coming together, what was that emotional trip for you there?
Just terror and fear and trepidation. If I'm being honest with you, I was just terrified because like it was all. I mean, you know, and this is true for every single person. Like you once going through this process once, like I feel like I've told you this before. Like every time I read a comic now, it's with so much more appreciation for all the work and time that goes into it, right? Because there's so many hands that you don't
Right.
even see beyond the scenes, and there's so much time and blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of times literally years. That something that sometimes takes you 20 minutes or an hour or a day to read, it's very hard to know that. And now that I know that, I really appreciate it. And the same thing here, like everybody in our lives, right? Like you hit, go live button to make the show happen tonight. And we're all kind of here live and we're in the moment. And what's not seen is how much work you put into it behind the scenes to make the show exist in the first place. The hours and hours and hours of effort to make it as professional and wonderful and welcoming as you've got it. And even the amount of time just to set up like tonight's stream and make sure everything comes off without a hitch, right? Like that's not necessarily visible on the surface. And yet you went through all that at the same time as living your life and doing your job and all the things that are going on in life. So like for this, at the exact same time that the Kickstarter is getting near and near to launch on May 2nd.
Right.
Right. And I've never done it before. I'm pressing the last building blocks. Like I'm dealing with this stream of conversation with the eventual printer, right? And how to make this happen. Like we're designing right now. I'm in the middle of negotiations, designing an ad to go on the back cover to redesign their logo to turn it into a 1940s logo so it jives with the book. Because I don't know if you notice, you can see this at the bottom of the Kickstarter page where I talk about the printer. The printer of Jane American is in Plymouth, Michigan, where I grew up, where the book takes place, where my grandfather came back from the war to.
Right.
Like it's literally down the road, and they've been here for 40 years and knew my grandfather through Kiwanis. Like the serendipity is mind melting.
Well, then they should no problem changing the logo.
You know what I mean? Like that's going on at the same time. I'm working. I'm touring this, right, and I'm going to cons to do this. I'm teaching, 180 teenagers every day. I got 3 teenagers in my house that need to get places and be fed and stuff, or they turn into wild animals, wilder than they already are. I'm hanging up blinds because they all got taken down because we got new windows, and like cancer's still trying to kill me. Like so like I don't, as much as it's amazing. Like last week, I'm not like sitting back at any point going, it's coming, and let's take a moment to appreciate it. What a wonderful experience. I'm like, it's coming, and I haven't hung the blinds yet. But I feel like I've told you guys before, like the unknown scares the crap out of me. And so this being back, at least from the part of the creative process being another first time experience for me, a lot of terror for the Kickstarter.
And now it's funded though, so now you can relax a little.
But we've had deep conversations before where we get into like some of the heavy stuff sometimes, and I fully admit I'm very self-aware of this. I'm not very good at containing it, but like I've lived my life a lot of times not in the moment because I'm so focused on tomorrow.
Yeah,
and I miss a lot of today. I'm the most prepared, every lesson for this year school was ready to go in August, kind of thing. Like I'm that guy. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility along the way. I'm not that rigid, but like I spend so much effort today getting ready for tomorrow that sometimes I miss today. So if I'm being honest with you right now, I'm a very busy, like I said, at the been able to quite yet, But even when I do, 90% of my focus is going to be on hitting those stretch goals so that I can now guarantee that the 120 page OGN exists. Right. I don't know. Let's get real for a minute. Let's get heavy, and then we'll get back to the jokes. Like, I don't know that that's necessarily a very healthy way to live, but it's kind of how I do things. So
Right, it's just how you've always operated, right?
Yeah,
It's built into you as a person.
Yeah, and you would think, and maybe this is partially true. Maybe I'm being snapped out of some of that, because when you live your life like that, it doesn't change the reality that time is finite for all of us, right?
Right.
And I've gotten almost as big of a dose of mortality as you can get without your mortality coming and actually biting you over the last 8 months. So if it's something I'm going to adjust and change about myself, there's no better time than right now.
Yeah. Now, does your wife or anybody say to you at times like, "Hey, we got this part done. I'm serious. I need you to focus on you staying healthy, and I also need help with these kids." Does that ever come out? And I know that's kind of personal, but I so could see that coming out of my wife's mouth, because I'll do that with certain things. If I get to focusing on too much of one thing, then she's like, "Hey, remember, you have other duties as applied."
Jim, that's the only thing that comes out when this stuff comes up, right? Okay. Like, it's not the occasionally, man, did you do 12 interviews today and the children are still not dressed? Like, no. It is the only thing that is expressed in this house. I think we've told you about it. Like, there's nobody in this house that is impressed with this part of my life. Nobody. I am not getting, I might.
Yeah, the fist bumps aren't happening, huh?
No.
Like I've been to a con where somebody comes up to me and said, "I've been waiting to meet you," right?
Yeah.
There is nobody who wants to meet me in this house. There are just people who want the laundry done and to get fed and to get to their softball game in this house.
Right.
That's something you certainly understand as a father, right?
Yeah.
Comic books nothing important about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is at no point where I got some family members that are in a softball tournament right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is probably why I got to do 2 interviews back to back, because there's nobody here to tell me no. If those humans come back to the house and a certain amount of blinds are not hung up, regardless of the fact that I'm supposed to be at a signing all day tomorrow, there's going to be hell to pay, as Uncle Owen says in episode 4. There's no point, Jim, where like if she comes home and the jobs aren't done, I can't be like, ahem. He's going to be like, ahem, and throw that out the window.
Or beat you with the book.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Hero Special Edition, 50 bonus pages. It packs a wall up now. I get hit over the head with that, and there's going to be damage done.
Way to fit it in. That was nice.
Wasn't that nice? It's almost like I know what I'm doing these days.
Well, let's segue to not living in the future, but living in the past. You were lucky enough and fortunate enough in doing the research for this book to actually see the factory and some on-hand locations, right?
Yeah. So you can sit there and you can do Google images searches all day, and it's going to get you to a point, when you look at those sample pages and you see that icebox in the back of the kitchen or that phone on their wall, that's like a lot of extensive research, making sure everything's period accurate, if not a little bit beforehand, because I'm a stickler for that realism. If that scene's taking place in 1943, that icebox is definitely from 1935, 1936, because this family is not rolling in it, right?
Right.
Much less to be that person that the pedantic nerd, I'm a pedantic nerd, gets to then call you out and say, excuse me, that truck model is 1955. Why are you putting it in this 1946 scene?
Right, so you're sending pics to the artist going, look, it needs to look like this.
Exactly. Like the Google Drive that we share has the folder, which is the research and reference photos and reference video folder. That photo, I know it's the internet. I know it's not real. That photo or that file weighs 1,000 pounds. Like, do not lift that file. You will throw out your back. People, men of our age, Gary, Jim, don't lift the file. This is my warning.
Oh, Lord.
But to your point, there is nothing like getting to go and touch and feel and see the real thing. And
Nice.
because this book takes place in Plymouth, the town that I grew up in, the town that I now teach just north of, and because that's where my family grew up, and that's where everybody's from. Wall Wire, where most of the story takes place in, an actual factory pre-war, and then got the war contract during World War II, making those Marsden mats to make the temporary runways in the Pacific and in Europe. My grandfather and I, a couple of years ago, got to take a tour of the factory the week before they tore it down and segmented it into office spaces.
Wow.
And what that means is they had stripped it all down. So there was nothing in there that was when it was doing its job in 1985, 2008, much less even like 1970. It was stripped down to those original brickwork and woodwork and the conveyor belts from the 1940s that carried those Marsden mats.
Wow.
And I got footage of all of it. And so when you back the Kickstarter and your backer package arrives in the mail, whatever cover you choose, whatever combination, whatever you want to do, and you flip it open and Jane's in the factory, that's the real thing. That's not anything in my imagination. That's not something Annie made up. That's where real humans during World War II on a war contract made those mats that allowed the bombers to take off from the different islands. And when you see that wall is there and that stairwell is there and the punch clock is right over there, it's the real thing.
Now, was that a surreal experience for you just to walk in there at first and just know that you're a part of your...
Yeah, like the history. Okay, the history nerd in me was totally geeking out. The fact that my grandfather was there with me made it tons more special. The thing that I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around even to this day was that was the factory that my great grandfather worked in making the Marsden mats during World War II.
Right.
And it's like, there is nothing like touching history. Time travel is impossible except for when it's possible. And like I remember there's this very, very pivotal scene that's going to happen in a little bit later in the 120-page graphic novel. And it takes place kind of down this stairwell, dark corridor going down to the cellar. And I remember standing in the actual doorway and like touching the brickwork on the wall. And I got like a chill. And I was like, oh my God, like this is so real.
Well, it's so cool because you're in a place that has history from the 40s. How many other hands have touched where you've touched? How many lives have passed through the steps that you've passed through?
Right. Like the ghosts were real, you know? It was crazy.
Bro, I get it. Every time I dig something up and I'm
holy cow, man. Jim, you're living this.
Yeah,
like,
I'm like,
you're putting on the ground.
I mean, I found, here it is, a Civil War button. I mean, it was right next, like 2 feet away from a musket ball. It was on somebody's coat at some time.
Yeah. So that's, like as a little kid history nerd, like Civil War was my jam at the beginning.
Right.
So okay, I can't believe Gary, only for you am I going to air this dirty family laundry. Are you ready?
All right, let's have it.
So, my grandparents had 3 daughters, okay? My mom being the oldest, and then 2 younger sisters. All 3 of them were teachers in Plymouth Canton schools, the same place where this story takes place. And to say that my mother and her next youngest sister, my Aunt Barb, 2 years younger, have been competitive for the last 70-some years is a slight understatement. Okay. And there was a period of time when I was really young that like Aunt Barb was probably my primary babysitter.
Yeah.
Okay. And I spent a lot of time at her house. And at the ripe old age of 3, she decided, less for my benefit, and I think more to spite my mother and be competitive, to teach me to read before my mom could.
Ooh.
Right. So she's doing the like Mr. Men books, and there was this really cool Spider-Man coloring book I remember, and Dick and Jane and the basics and stuff like that. But as soon as she got me to a certain level, and this is, Jim, I hope you'll appreciate this, the very first book that became the one that I carried around, the one that I read over and over and over again, was a big golden book of the Civil War.
Yeah.
And it was beautifully illustrated with illustrated battles and just tons and tons of information. And it was just, so I got into even nonfiction really, really early. And it was the Civil War that was my first historical, my deep dive. So you showing me that button, I got chills over here over that.
Yeah. And it's just anything. I mean, there's just so much stuff that I find, and then I sit there and I wonder how, whose could this have been, and how did it get here, and what were they doing? Because I find stuff in weird locations that I'm thinking, what was this a place back then? And
Yeah.
I go back and try to Google it, and I can't find it. And
it's funny you say that, because that is a thread of thinking that I had in my brain writing this story.
Yeah.
Because here's this real place with this real history. Here, a great grandfather I know was there, and it's sometimes hard to imagine what's going on in their lives, and you get these little pieces of the history that help you piece the puzzle together, even for human beings that aren't in the historical record.
Right.
You can that's where the imagination comes in, right? That's where Jane's story comes in, because you know what I know. I know that in 1946, all the Rosies got sent back to the kitchen.
Right.
Right. No matter what 51% of our population did for us during that war, stepping out of the kitchen finally after thousands of years of Western tradition of women's roles, and literally won the war for us on this home front. The instant it was over, back to status quo.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's Jane's mom, and dad's not coming home. So what happens next? So I got to tell their story, knowing the real history, but speculating with my fictional characters, how that impacts it financially and what that does to Jane and the decision she's got to make, knowing what she can do, knowing how she could probably provide for this family, but how unsafe it is for her to reveal that to the world. And that's Jim, that's me playing that speculative history game that anybody who's either a historian or a history nerd, we all know our favorite game to play is
history what if.
Yeah, the history,
right? Yeah.
Now, when you're walking through this factory where your grandfather used to work, it's got to be bringing back a ton of memories for him. Was he telling you any good stories?
Well, he was in Europe laying wire. His father-in-law is the one who worked in the factory during the war years.
Gotcha.
But totally. I mean, he lived in Plymouth his entire adult life. So he knows this place. He knows that that's where his father. So when he's in Europe and my grandmother's back home doing the can you picture the phone operator with the yeah, that was my grandma. And her father is trying to make ends meet, because their story is they're Indiana people, and the Depression hit both families really hard, but the Depression destroyed my grandmother's family. They lost their farm, got foreclosed on. They got a house in town which got foreclosed on, and they were living in and out of apartments month to month for most of the Depression. And my great grandfather, my grandmother's father, was their family survived because of WPA, and he's he did cobblestone and brick streets, and he came to Plymouth first. And he they did that thing. I don't know if you know about this. Roosevelt, and part of the New Deal was they would tear up roads just to repave them to give the dudes work to have something to do. So he was doing stuff like that. And that's when he got the job actually during World War II, because there were all these jobs because men of a certain age are off fighting the war. So that's how Rosie comes in. That's how dudes of retirement age, which doesn't really exist quite yet, are going back to work. That's where the Great Migration kicks into high gear, and you've got like actors or factories that they weren't for, and like all that integration happens and all this diversity happens. And then that's what's so shocking about 1946 is every single one of those groups are expected to go back to the status quo when that's over. And that's, I mean,
right, like their sacrifice meant nothing.
If you want to find the actual launch date of the women's rights movement and the civil rights movement, it's 1946. It's not 1955 with Rosa. It's not the 1970s with ERA. It's the fact that a generation of people of color and a generation of women were asked to pick up the slack. They did. And then they were told, thank you for your service. Now go back to your secondhand citizen role.
Right.
So you're telling this historic tale.
Yeah.
And you got the young woman. I'm sorry, her name again was?
Jane.
Yeah. Jane American. So, right? So Jane, how did you decide to give her abilities in this story and fit it in with
Because Gary, I'm a comic book nerd. It's the same reason why Parallel isn't about some dude who works in an office named Landon who's going through a quarter-life crisis and he goes and seeks medical help and it all turns out okay. Of course there's going to be a parallel version of him reaching out and offering him a second chance at all the dreams he thought he left behind, and it becomes very dangerous for him. Because sci-fi comics are cool, right? You know what? I would read a straightforward historical comic book story. I would totally read it. I do read them. But you know what's a lot more fun? And it's going to reach a lot more people who just like comic books in general and then might learn something about thematically in the history are people who like a certain type of story that is very popular in the United States where people can do things that other people can't. I'm not saying the word. Don't let me say the word.
You're not saying the word.
Good. Because I'm a comic book nerd, Gary, and it's fun to read fun comic books because comic books about people with extraordinary abilities are fun to read.
So that was definitely a part of it from the onset then.
100%.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get at because I didn't know if you're like,
I don't know. Look,
but I want to add something extra, and I didn't know if that was the extra.
I think like both of these stories, their origin has those multi-layers built in. I think that's who I am as a writer. I think.
It's not Shazam.
It's not. Thank you. Oh boy, you could have given away the whole thing.
I don't know. Do we have time to still ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead, ask.
Okay, this is kind of like I want to know this because sometimes when I read things, and I'll do this either at the end or sometimes in the middle when I read a book, especially. And I know this is probably not a good thing to do, but I'll sit there and wonder who could play that person. Whose voice am I hearing? I mean, like if this was a movie, because I used to read a lot of John Grisham novels. Yeah. And I would sit there and read it and I go, damn, if that isn't, Richard Dreyfuss saying those words, or if that isn't Darth Vader, not I can't think of his name.
James Earl Jones?
James Earl Jones. If that isn't the judge.
I was about to say David Prowse, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but no, it was James Earl Jones. Yeah, it was James Earl Jones. And I'm like, that sounds just like something James Earl Jones, like he's the guy for this. Richard Greer's, this would be perfect. Like it wasn't one that got made into a movie either. I think it was.
Jim, are you telling me you do that pretty naturally when you read? Like you're casting it in your head if it doesn't already pre-exist?
Right. I mean, that's what I'm saying. This was a movie. This was a book, and I don't think the Street Lawyer. I don't think it ever went to a movie of. Like a lot of his books went to movies.
Oh yeah.
But not that one. And as I was reading it when it came out, I was like, wow, this would be good as so and so could do this, and they'd have to change this up a little bit. And I don't do it with everything, obviously, but Well,
can I ask you a question? Does it So let's say you read a Grisham novel in the early 90s and they say make it into the Rainmaker in like 94 or 96 or whenever that was, and you see somebody in your head and then it's Matt Damon and Danny DeVito. Does that ruin it for you?
No, it doesn't ruin it. It just, that was somebody else's idea. I'm not the casting director. In my head, it might not have been them. It probably wasn't. Actually, when I read it, I'm sure Matt Damon wasn't even thought of in my head.
Right.
I can't remember who it was actually. But I did used to do that a lot when I'd read books like that and go, wow, this sounds like so-and-so could play this. And that being said, if Netflix came to you and said, hey man, this really got to me in the feels. My aunt's cousin's mother was at that factory. And I think we could do this shit. Let's make this let's do this. Who did we get to cast as Jane and her mother and all the characters in it? That's what I'm saying. So think about that. You text me later. That's too good.
Oh, okay. I don't have to tell you. Okay, good.
No, you probably shouldn't tell me.
Okay, can I want to tease something though that is related to that, because so like the first thing that popped in my head is an impossibility, because there's two characters in the book that are connected to my grandfather in name. Okay, so like when you see Jane's little brother in those preview pages, like I called him Gene, which is it was my grandfather's name. Okay, so like little Gene in there, named after that. But my grandfather's last name is attached to with my great grandfather's first name is attached to the character who's running Wall Wire, like the manager, not the owner, not Mr. Wall, but like the manager. And so that's Mr. Overholt. And Annie, proving to you that if you support me at the $300 tier that gets your
right,
proving you that Annie can do this. When you see the character of Mr. Overholt, who runs the plant, that is my grandfather at like 55 years old. That's from photo evidence and stuff like that. That's him. And so like that's hard for me to see anybody else besides him physically in that role.
Gotcha.
I'll tell you this without saying any names of anybody. It would be very difficult for me to cast this book only because a lot of the people I was thinking about for characters are actors and actresses that are from 70, 80 years ago.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Just because when you see them online, when you look at it, do Google images searches, their hair is already there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like they look like somebody from the 1940s. So it's much easier to kind of visualize and get them into
right.
This makeup structure and this, this collar line, because it's everybody's anyway.
Right.
What I'll tell you is, if you check out, so we're on the stretch goal phase, right?
Yeah.
And I told you guys how important it is to keep pushing this book and keep supporting it, because not only does none of the money come to me, but every single dollar is to make the next chunk of this story exist in the world, and defrays that cost. The biggest, baddest stretch goal on there is number 3. And if we hit number 3, number 1 is cool. Number 2 is really cool and unique and something else you get in your hand that you're not going to get anywhere else. But if we hit stretch goal number 3, the 32-page book that you backed will be a fatter book than that. And the director's cut comes out and the bonus stuff, and you'll get to see pictures of the inside of Wall Wire. And you will get to see some of those real life people that the book was cast on. And a lot of that bonus material will become yours. It doesn't matter when you backed it, all fiscal backers will get the bigger, fatter director's cut of the book.
Ooh.
Okay. So I think I'm figuring this out now. So we're over your goal.
Yeah.
We're over your goal.
Yeah.
And all I need to do.
So you don't like that's like, for people new to Kickstarter, that's the confusing thing. A lot of people think, okay, it's funded, let's stop. And number 1, I'm going to really strongly encourage everybody to keep backing Kickstarters once it's past a goal anyway, because for a lot of creators, that becomes the part where suddenly they can now make a living off of it, right?
Right. They make some money out of the deal.
Right. Now, that's not me. I'm just trying to get the cost down on the bigger book that follows this.
We know
But
you're
the
a
cool
financially
thing-
wealthy teacher. I mean,
Yeah, right.
come on.
The cool thing is, so like right there, so somebody, like if you look at that number, somebody backed me over the 7,200. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not getting their book. They are. That doesn't change anything for anybody. Like if that number up there wasn't 7,305, if that number was 85,000, okay, dare to
Right.
dream, that person who put it over 85 grand is still getting their physical copy of the book. And and like if you scroll down and you look at the stretch goal part of this, which is much further down on the page, the reason why you put stretch goals is to encourage people to keep going. And the coolest thing about stretch goals is it's not anymore just about getting your cool cover or your cool tier and the rewards that come with it. If you hit the stretch goal, suddenly everybody who's backed it
Gets that as well.
gets this bonus, whatever the new reward is, right? It's not like, I mean, you still get your book, but like a little bit further, okay, there, yeah. So like basically, if we hit that first stretch goal, every single physical backer of this book is going to see their name in print, and there's a special thank you page at the back, and your name is going to be in Jane American forever. Okay. If we hit stretch goal number 2, every single person, whether you backed it on May 2nd or you are the last person on May 30th, if we hit that second stretch goal, every single person who backed the book at a physical level is going to get this wicked cool, authentic feeling and looking war bond that Dave Lentz and I designed. Basically a real piece of history, and then thematically connecting to your support of us. And then there's that big 1-3. If we hit that, because my level of gratitude is going to be so high, because if we hit that stretch goal, and I know it's lofty, right? But if we hit that, I book two, the 120-page graphic novel is coming. Right?
Yeah.
You're going to get there. And because it's going to be so manageable. You're going to have this thing that should probably have a price tag of $25,000 on it. And it's going to be something even closer to this one because we did this. And because of my gratitude of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut even more of any possible financial benefit for me out of it. And we're going to fatten this book up and give you a bunch of bonus content that even if this 32-page one-shot is picked up by a publisher and Annie does a cover and it goes into Diamond, nobody's ever going to have this direct. I mean, nobody's going to have any of these covers, but you who back it. And definitely nobody's going to have the, let's call it like a 36 or a 38-page one-shot with all that bonus material. That'll never exist anywhere else.
Nice.
Cool.
It is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Now let's get to your trailer.
Yeah. Are we going to watch it?
We're going to watch it. I know
Okay,
you probably watched it 12 times today, but we're going to go for lucky 13.
Okay.
So can I preface it?
You sure can.
What people need to know about this trailer, the book trailer, is two of the human children that apparently I'm ignoring and not feeding or clothing, according to our interview earlier, made this for me. So this is my kids helping me out, which does my heart proud.
All right. And why is it? And now when I go to play it, it's freezing. Let's.
Technology.
I didn't do it.
It's great.
It's okay because you know why? Because I have a backup.
Gary, you're always prepared.
Let's see. I did have.
So I'm going to vamp while you're figuring it out. Yeah, like anybody listening, anybody watching later, just www.kickstarter.com, search Jane American. It's easy to find, or follow the links that Gary's providing you, or there's a link in my bio on Instagram at @JDouglasWrites, and like all that information is there. If you've learned anything at all from today, I like to over-explain. So you've got a question about what this tier means, or what it means to me as a book, or who's involved creatively, or the transparency of where every dollar of your support goes. It's all on the page waiting there for you.
All right, so how'd
Wow.
you come to picking out the music? Obviously, it's of a period.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I spent some time. I did. If you went into my basement, if you go back into my back room, one of those walls is comics. One of those walls is DVDs and Blu-rays, and one of those walls is CDs. And there's a decent chunk of 1940s big
40s.
band song CDs. So
Right.
I had enough to pick from right there, and I went. Yeah, I mean, like I spent some time because I needed mood, right? I didn't wanna sing it. I thought that was too on the nose. But I didn't want to stray too far away from like Benny Goodman.
I
And
like
then
it because you kind of get a phonograph in your mind when you're hearing it,
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah,
and
it
it
sounds
definitely
like it,
puts
right?
you in a time period.
Yeah. And anytime I hear about it, like, or anytime I listen to it, like, because of the stories that my grandparents told me, like, they were fans. So, like, neither of my parents are cool at all or were cool at all. And like there's this famous story that my mother likes to claim didn't happen, but everybody confirms it. In 1965, a friend of hers offered her a ticket to go for free to see the Beatles at Olympia Stadium in Detroit. And she was like, I've got to do my hair tonight. So she didn't go. And they were not like concert goers, but my grandparents went to see and to dance to everybody, right? Like,
Yeah.
like those bands and those band leaders just toured and toured and toured. And like, if somebody came basically from, when they became financially solvent after the war, right? I mean, they're still dirt poor leading up to 1942, because the depression's still hitting them hard. But as soon as they became a family and started establishing their lives afterwards, and even after having kids for a couple of years, so basically that 10 years from 46 to about 56, if somebody that they were a fan of when they were a kid came around, right, they went to see him and they went to dance.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. So like that music, like I see them there when I'm picking this out and I'm picking that out for that trailer for sure.
Now, as we're wrapping down here, I do want to bring Annie right up again.
Yeah.
So, 21-year-old artist.
Uh-huh.
This is her first book, her first
Uh-huh.
published work.
Yep.
So, you're also a key book when she gets big, right? You're her first published work.
Oh, you better believe it. She better be thanking my when she's up there winning. I got nominated for Ringos and then lost. When she's winning Eisners, if she's not thanking me, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah. I'd like to thank Jason Douglas back in 19.
I can already see Jason jumping up out of the crowd. Excuse
That's
me.
me. I'll be like 85 at that point, but I'll slowly rise from my seat. There'll be no more jumping up at that point, gentlemen.
Right. But I just wanted to put that out there. This will be a key book for as far as an artist debut goes.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
I'll tell you what, like that Malia cover, that Rosie cover, like Malia's.
It's good.
Like Malia's on a rocket express to the top of the comic industry right now as we speak.
Right.
So that cover, like, don't miss out on the cover. Don't miss out on the really nerdy chromium cover, like a 1990s Valiant cover, and don't miss out on the extreme limited textless variant of that cover, because that one is my only one that's not only limited in how many I'm printing, but it's also limited in time. That one's going to be gone in, I think, 12 days. So you want to grab that one really quick. And then we didn't really talk about this.
Yeah, this is the one I got. This one here.
Yeah. So that's the Malia cover. That's going to get hot at some point because she's just going to be nothing but rising mediocre in the industry. I mean, she's back working in comics. She's fresh off her gig as being an animator for DreamWorks Animation.
Wow.
She's got the goods. And that's the Cena Grace cover. And even if you don't know Cena's name, you know Cena because Cena ran Skybound for Kirkman and edited like the first 60-some issues of Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And
I kind of like that one.
He's got a Superman book coming out, and he wrote 18 issues of Iceman.
I really like that one.
Gary, go back up to the Cena cover.
Okay.
Because so this is one of the most unique experiences you get on this Kickstarter, because Dave Lentz, my letterer and designer, he aged it so it kind of looks like one of those covers for Black, that Lemire did for Black Hammer 1945. So if you can see the folds on there, you can see the staining, the spine ticks and stuff. And then look, vintage looking books are cool, right? But
Absolutely.
What's new and what makes this unique is I'm putting it through a printing process through Comics Wellspring, in downtown Plymouth, called the Soft Touch Laminate. And this book is going to look old and it's going to feel old.
Nice.
It's got this where you can't see it, but when you touch it, it's going to feel like a Golden Age comic book. That's the reason why Garrett Gunn from SourcePoint named it the Granddad's Attic variant, is because it's going to feel like it's been in your grandparents' attic since 1945. And it's the softish laminate. When you touch it, it almost feels like suede.
Right there.
So, what are the three magic things about the magic elixir for Golden Age comics? Are they look old, they feel old, and they smell old? I hit 2 out of the 3. That's a 66% batting average. That's pretty good.
I was going to ask you about the smell. Like you couldn't go the extra step.
Yeah, I don't know. If I could have bottled it, I'd be a millionaire right now if I could have added that to my books. But I haven't figured that out yet.
So, and we'll take a look at the Virgin, which is cool.
Yeah.
Or it just looks like an old poster.
I tell you what. So that was the last tier I added. That was not part of the original plan. And I couldn't resist. So that was the tier I added kind of at the last minute, because when I saw that as a text list, it just pops, and I just love it. It just looks so pretty. So that's actually kind of our most limited one, because there's only a certain number of copies, and that's going to be gone in 12 days from now, as I said. So if you're interested in that, if that's the kind of collecting you do, you got to grab that one quick.
And that's the what is it? Hollow.
Well, no, the hollow one is you got hollow. So the previs on that is my least favorite, not because it's my least favorite cover. It's maybe my favorite cover, but the previs on the hollow one, so the one up from that, Gary, you need to think back one up from that. So keep on scrolling up. Yeah, so that doesn't do it justice. That's just Dave kind of putting some color on it, so you know that it's a fancy shiny cover. But the chromium cover, you need to think back to Exo Manowar #0, and Bloodshot 1, and Shadow Man 0, because you guys know on this show I am a vintage Valiant nerd.
I know. We try not to hold it against you, Jason.
Yeah,
I know. So that's like an old school chromium cover with that kind of metallic cover with the cutting edges and all the colors on it, and that doesn't do it justice. It's just until that's printed, I can't show that to you. So Dave kind of put some colors on it to give you the idea.
Right, and the chromiums don't photograph well anyway.
No, they don't. So my sister was asking me about that today, and I was like, she's like, what is that? What makes it different? I'm like, hold on, let me show you. And I ran downstairs and I grabbed Exo 0, and I'm like, I got it on the phone. I'm like, oh crap, it's not going to look like anything, because it doesn't photograph very well, but it looks, when it's in your hands, I don't know. I know you guys give me crap about that, but I love those covers. I really do.
It's just a pick. Dude, there's nothing wrong with it.
Where'd it go? The Peacemaker that came out, just
did they do one with that too?
Well, they did chrome to it, and I immediately grabbed it. I don't even know where it is. I just got it, and it might be downstairs because I'm reading.
Psychedelic Comics. Thank you. That was the idea.
Norman Rockwell painting. Absolutely.
Oh my God. So that's what I said to Malia. I'm like, yep, that was a reference point. That was absolutely a reference point. Nicely spotted. Nobody yet. Oh, there you go. Nobody yet has spotted the subtle homage that the Cena Grace cover is yet, though. And that's kind of surprised me, because Dave Lenz, my letterer, he spotted it right away. Cena admitted it to me a little bit, that was inspiration, but nobody's really picked up on like there's definitely that Norman Rockwell experience,
but it's with the running. I just can't remember
that running is the running, and the circle in the background is a dead giveaway. I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
It is definitely not American comics. It is maybe the most if you take manga out of it, if you take that out of it, if you take anime out of it, if you think Europe, maybe the most universally known European comic over the last 80 years. It's a subtle homage to that for sure. And if I say it and then you go look it up online, you will see it. But it's a Tintin cover is what it is. And
Oh,
there's
yes. Now that you say it, it pops right into your head.
like the Tintin cover has got the circle in the back, and they're running. They're always in that pose. And so like that was his inspiration for that. So it's period appropriate. It's that kind of subtle nod to something that came before, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, Tintin was always running.
Yep.
Well, like it's funny because it's so far removed from anything these days that it doesn't naturally pop into your head anymore.
Yeah. Like I mean, we couldn't not call that one parallel variant the Donnie Darko variant because it's literally the Donnie Darko image because that's what it is and that's
Right.
close enough or whatever. But like nobody's picking up on that, so it's a little more subtle than that. But that's definitely inspiration there. Yeah, I mean, we're not calling it the Norman Rockwell homage.
Right?
Stylistically, she's doing something different anyway, right? It's
Right.
not that paint, but it's definitely inspired by it.
Wow, cool. So as we're wrapping this up, what are the last words that you want to give the people out there that might still be on the fence? Or guys, how long is this Kickstarter open for?
So we've got until the end of May, and I need that time because I want to hit those stretch goals. But like what I was told by people much smarter than me is that's also a double-edged sword, because what more time, and I live this every single day with 8th graders, right? You give them a longer deadline and less kids do it because it gives you more time to procrastinate. And that's the danger of it going until the last day of May, is because you think I have time. So the reality is, like, if you look at that beautiful textless Norman Rockwell homage variant, that's going to be gone in like 10 days from now. You will never be able to get that again. So you got to get on your horse for this. And you can't, like, if you're somebody who believes in supporting indie creators or indie comics, it's the same message that we talk about almost every time I'm on this show, right? Your dollar, when you support indies, it spends differently than $1 on a bigger company, right? It, in a lot of cases, it literally puts food on table and clothes on backs, right? It literally keeps my dream alive and allows me to do this, even though not $1 of it comes to me. You are going to put $1 in a pocket of an artist for her very first professional work.
Sure.
Ever. And that's you, and you do that, right? And what you can't then sleep on is if you take the attitude of I've got until the end of May, guess what's going to happen tomorrow? Life. Right? Things are going to go wrong tomorrow. You've got appointments to keep on Monday. And then the next time you think about it, it's going to be because months from now, the person who backed its book's going to arrive and it's going to look glorious in their hand. And you're going to say, oh, I forgot.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't want to happen. I made it. Kickstarter allows you to go 60 days. Nobody does 60 days because that's like doom. 30 days is kind of the longest they ever recommend you going. And I felt I needed that because I was worried because it was unknown. I didn't know that I was going to get funded in 4. I also now feel I need it because it's so important for me to hit those stretch goals so the next book can exist, right? Again, no financial benefit to me. What I don't want to happen is that danger of people can, like, people are in here watching right now, and you could go right now and you could click the link and you could back it right now, and you're guaranteed to get one of these things that'll never exist again. You're also supporting something that doesn't exist without you. If you don't buy Batman this month, DC's not going under.
Right.
Right? Warner Media's gonna be okay.
Right.
Right?
They're gonna make it.
If you don't buy all 48X titles this month, guess what? The mouse is gonna be financially fine.
Right.
But when you don't support indies, when you have the opportunity, they disappear forever. And yet indies are 90% of the books that are produced in the comic industry. It's where the kids get told that can't get told at the bigger companies because of 80 years of editorial mandate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether you're somebody who likes to support people with dreams, somebody who likes to support indie, somebody like I support small business people. Like, this is your shot. Or you're just the kind of person who likes stories that are well told, blood, sweat, and tears that you can feel on the pages behind them. This is your shot. And again, you're hearing a different. You guys have been with me so long now and have heard me talk about supporting indie comics on so many different shows. I'm assuming you're hearing a different tone in my voice. Usually I really, even at this last opportunity to pitch and to push, I really back away from myself and make it much more general. And I am pushing for the Jane American Kickstarter because I have a guilty conscience as a human being. And yet I do not feel guilty about pushing this Kickstarter right now. Go donate to it. Go support it today, because it's not about me. It's about the memory of my grandparents. It's about all those kids in the classroom who still struggle with identity today. And it's about supporting the really amazing creative people that helped me make the book. Not a penny if it goes to me. It's a story that I want in your hands. And the only way that happens is if you back it.
Can't ask for a better pitch than that.
Nope.
That's what I got. I think that was good.
It was good.
Next time I need to get sweet talked into a place, I'm calling Jason first.
That's right. I'll come to it.
Hold on, I know a guy.
I know a guy.
No, that's exactly right. Which is why, Jason, I didn't procrastinate. Day one, I got it. Number 3, but
right.
And I'm not gonna pretend. I have a limited budget over here. I don't back a lot of Kickstarters. So like anything, you got to pick and choose which ones are important to you.
100%.
And as you know, you were the very first guest that started out my program in the hot seat with the usual suspects. My interview shows started with you.
It will go down, and I've told you this before, it will go down as one of the highlights and honors of this, and however long this journey lasts for me. Knowing that you and I were together from pretty much the beginning of both of our journeys, that's a bit of magic that will mean something to me forever.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I mean, and you help start something that I'm still doing today, which I appreciate. You'll always be one of the favorites on my channel. That'll never change. But that's why I couldn't wait to back it. One, because I can speak to how well you tell a story from reading your first one, right?
Right.
And we pushed that book hard on this channel. We bought extra copies, all of us. We gave copies away on all of our different channels because we all believed in your vision, and we all read it, and we all connected with it. That's why I couldn't wait to back this one, and that's why you guys out there should back it. I live on a budget. I have to be choosy what I back. If Jason Douglas is putting something out, it's got my money.
We're gonna end this with me crying out of gratitude. Is that really what we're gonna do here, Gary?
I'm just saying. I have to give my endorsement too.
It's beautiful. Thank you. It means the world to me. That's not a platitude. I'm not blowing smoke. You know how much you guys mean to me, and how much I appreciate the support, how much I appreciate the friendship. I mean, Jim, my daughter talks about you still. So you've put a hobby into her life that I wouldn't have been able to provide. This community brings people together. And because of that, we need to support each other. When we need each other, whether it's like, hey, this dude is going through colon cancer, let's just send him, hey, you're in my thoughts. You know what? That's the support I needed that day. For this, I want this dream to live. I need your financial support so this book can live. It's what we do for each other, and you guys are two of the best at it.
Right. And I think the YouTube space is vital to indies.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So. Well, you know what? It's 10:05, and if you keep him much longer, Gary, he's going to get a butt whipping.
I know that's why I was trying to wrap it up.
My eyes darting down. She's out of town right now, but the texts are rolling in.
Yeah,
we speak.
The kids aren't asleep, and you ain't hung no
guys.
blind.
She could smell the blood in the water, like she knew.
You better not be talking about that book again, for crying out loud.
pretty. I mean, she's not here, but I felt the book, like the wonk over the head that Jim was talking about. Like I felt it coming.
I just think it's funny.
So we went on a Friday, which we don't usually do.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to find this on the rewind. We went up against a lot of channels and some really big giveaways tonight. And we still had a fun crowd. There's like people giving away PlayStation 5s tonight that are
What?
No. I don't think it was tonight.
That.
I think he was just doing his 3,000 tonight.
But there's big things going on tonight. We came on here. We still had a good crowd. I want to say thank you to everyone that watched us live. Everyone that came out to support Jason Douglas and his vision. Thank you guys very much. Again, his Kickstarter link is in the description below. It's also on his Instagram page, which the link to that is also in the description below. So I know you can find them.
You can't listen. You type me in it. You can't miss me. I'm literally in a hospital gown the day after surgery, flexing like a superhero, holding an IV. I'm on there. You're gonna find me.
Right.
Yep.
Hey, you got to take the survivor pose, right?
Mm-hmm.
And thank you all for coming out. We certainly appreciate it, Jason. Thank you for the 4th visit. And like I said, man, we got to line you up on another 10-1-1 and just talk your books.
So fun.
Right. And until next time, guys, keep it casual.